the feet and the fingertips burns like fire, burning the tide. Yeah, I was born with this tongue of angel, held hands with devil, warm in the night, cold like a stone, with a seal I haven't found, what I'm making for, a seal I haven't found, what I'm making for. Come, all the colors fade into you know I believe.
Hey, our gang, it is I, your old half-assed reporter, James Kalm, the guy on the bike, and I am back from a couple of weeks of snowstorm, slush, and personal matters, and we're in Soho. We're gonna run in here to the Soho branch of HAUSER WIRTH. And we're going to look at some George Condo pastel drawings. Stay tuned. Yes. Oh, come in and make our sweep. I think they're just titling the show Pastels. Well, this is Expanded Head 2024.
Yeah, all of them were made in 2024.
Okay, and that's 78 by 60 inches, so it's 6.5 by 5 feet. That's a big drawing. Okay, he's got a couple of sheets of paper that he's pasted together here. So they're saying that he's also got acrylic and metallic paint. Okay. Well, I've been looking at George's work for a couple of decades, like 3.5, 4. It's titled Wild Night in the City. And, oh gosh, I was introduced to him by Don Betchler at the Red Bar back in, I don't know, 1981, 82, back when the East Village was starting to boom. And, well, George was always a great draftsman. Okay, so we've got more of his splattered metallic. Maybe that's a reference to Jackson Pollock. I was also going to say that we covered at least one of his shows that was kind of cubistic when he was working with Skarstadt uptown. Maybe something else at the old Wildenstein mansion. This is titled Multiple Personalities. And it seems like the last 2 or 3 shows he's basically kind of focused in on just the heads, which I guess is a very powerful, recognized cubistic trope. Okay, then we got the little signature, August 24th. Girl with the green hair. I think George is also a very good colorist. And I think George is also a pretty good oil painter, although recently a lot of the work has been acrylic, but he's got a great touch. And I would say that one of the things about working on these large sheets of paper is that you get this wonderful velvety surface to work on. The redhead I was also thinking that at some point, maybe in the early 80s, well, at least Don's story was that he introduced George to some people in Germany, I guess the Mohammer Freiheit group, which were, I guess, around Dusseldorf and Cologne. And as George took off for several months and lived in Germany and got to meet some of the people that were involved in that scene back with the Neue Wilden and the Heftig painters, the New Foes. And, well, I guess George is also a pretty accomplished musician, so a lot of these guys just thought he was a great person to hang around with. Okay, this is Abstract Male Portrait 2024. Okay, so this one is 80 by 78. So that's like a little 2 feet wider than some of the other ones. And, okay, so this one has got 3 sheets of paper that are pasted together. I was going to say, I also seem to remember that, well, all the East Village people were pretty impressed with the way that George's career took off. I guess he started out, had a couple of shows with Pat Hearn, but gosh, I remember he had a show here at Pace Gallery, not that far away from here. And, well, I think it was based on album covers. He's, like I said, a music fan. Okay, this is a little nicer. This isn't just a head. This is a female gathering. Okay, I like these when they get a little more complex. We've got several figures in there. Also, well, these are awfully painterly for a show they're calling Pastels. Oh, look, George can paint hands. Also, I covered a show that he had at the New Museum, and gosh, at this point, that must be about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I had a whole gallery that was dedicated to his large drawings, but none of them were as big as this. The circus clown. I think also every time I make a video review of George's work, I end up thinking about his sources, the kind of comic book characters that he's based a lot of the work on. And well, part of that was always, who was your favorite Mad Magazine artist? And I always was a fan of Mort Drucker. Polka dotted collar is nice. This is Spectrum 2024. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I'm looking at the figure with the nails in the head, or whatever these are. It makes me think of Hellraiser. And then there's another question about what people are calling pastels these days. There's a regular dry pastel, there's an oil pastel, and there's oil sticks, colored pencils. And I think George has got a lot of mileage out of his eyeballs. This is another nice piece. Screaming abstraction. Okay, so he's doing some blotting here with his paint. Actually, this is probably the closest that he gets to the actual classic Cubist palette of Picasso and Baroque back in the teens. The browns, the grays. Smiling blonde. Well, I was going to say something when we were looking at the painting that was titled Green Hair, that I've been listening to some TV Girl songs, and there's a really good one titled blue hair. And I think one of the punchlines in there is something like, okay, she's gonna have to cut her blue hair off because she's gotten to be a certain age, and it's like, well, how do you designate the fact that you're not a loser if you're blonde and you don't have blue hair? Okay, this will be the last one. Collision course. Well, George comes up with some good names. And I was talking about what kind of comic book or Mad Magazine artists you would be biting on, and I was wondering if this would be some of the Hanna-Barbera stuff. There was a whole movement. I think Kenny Scharf is one of the Hanna-Barbarians. Maybe some of George's work is inspired by that. There's just a lot of magenta thrown on there. So that's been a look at George Condo Pastels here at HAUSER WIRTH. Okay, friends, well, we've come north, just north of Washington Square Park, and we're going to go in here to the storied Studio School. Take a look at an exhibition. Stay tuned. We're going to be looking at a show by Jim Condron titled Collective Things, curated by Karen Wilkin here at the Studio School. And, well, this is a pretty extensive show, and we're going to start over here on the west side. There's a couple of pieces. Well, the main theme of the show are this group of, I would call them assemblages. And what Jim has done is he has collected objects. A lot of these things are from people who have worked or taught here at the Studio School. This is Bruce Gagnier's things, and Bruce was a sculptor. It's like each one of these has a couple of paragraphs to go along with it, so we're not going to deal with that because we'd be here all night. But these are all items that are kind of unique for each one of the artists. I thought this was funny. This is Ben Pritchard's things. And we know Ben Pritchard. We've probably got at least 2 or 3 videos that we've posted about Ben. And I don't think Ben taught here, but he was one of Jim's friends. And he's a serious painter out in Bushwick. Okay, so the school is running and people are kind of leaving at the end of the day, so there's going to be a little conversations in the background. Maud Bright's things, plaster acrylic wood, blah, blah, blah. Sculptor Maud Bright gives Condron's a bowl that she used for plaster and a small painting. I actually like some of the smaller pieces where Jim has had to be more selective about what he puts together. And he was saying that he actually thinks of these as paintings, and some of them have, I guess, more coloristic aspects. This is David Cohen's things. Okay, so this is largely a tribute to his late dog, Allegra. Okay, so remember David's dog. I think she was a Italian greyhound, something like that, miniature greyhound. And yes, David is a well-known critic, and was associated here with the studio school for many years. Elisa Jensen's things. Okay, so we've got a old toaster. Well, I think the studio school is a fascinating place. A lot of history here. I think it started out as Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney's studio, and then she kind of expanded out and started the original, I think they call it the Whitney Studio Club, and she exhibited people like Stuart Davis and John Graham. Kevin Avicii's things, the iconic drag performer, musician, and club personality, Kevin Avicii, gave Condron a poster, blah, blah, blah. Earrings. We got our platform shoes. Looks like that's part of a surfboard. And a lot of glitter. And Landy's things, it's 2022. Also, something that Jim thinks of these as paintings, and I was talking about how he kind of, some of them have more color things than others, but this is a nice kind of a reduced palette, you would say, dealing with a lot of wood. Flashcards. Sharon Butler's things. Uh-oh. Well, known Sharon Butler for many years. She's puts out a blog called Two Coats of Paint. I think maybe this is the most formalistically flat piece. What does he say here? Sharon Butler purchased several coffee and tea containers from her favorite thrift shop, the only store I ever loved, and gave them to Condron. I set them into a wall of sheetrock, gridded with green. And Sharon's blog is called Two Coats of Paint. It's Elizabeth Hazen's things. So Elizabeth was a painter. She gave Condron some of her tools, an aluminum pie plate that she used to mix paint in. Some other things. A lot of these pieces have got pieces of fur in there. I'm wondering if that's Jim's own edition or whether they actually let him cut. It looks like something cut out of a mink coat. Okay, let's go into the main gallery. This is Mickey Drexler's things. books, The Little Engine That Could. Okay. Well, those look like hat boxes. Got a $2 bill. I was thinking it was actually a Rauschenberg piece that had a pillow with some kind of object sort of sticking in it. But I think this also is a good example of using the natural color as part of the piece. John Helliker's Things, 2024. The late painter John Helliker, one of the founding members of the New York Studio School, is represented by his painting chair, which was formerly a lobsterman's chair, and a sketchbook from the last decade of the artist's life. And I guess John probably smoked. Shangram Majumdar's Things. Brushes and brayers, which would make me think that Shangram was a printmaker, maybe. And well, it's interesting the way that Jim has kind of held them together with slabs of paint. Okay, here's another funny piece. Glenn Goldberg's Things, 2023. Oil, paper, wood, steel, fur, rubber, and leather. Well, we know Glenn. He was actually father of one of the kids that my kids went to school with out at Poly Prep. I'm in Diker Heights. And, well, this main structure here is like the stencil that the city painting department would use to paint on the streets with. And it's got a great layer of paint. Judy Glansman's Things. She gave some of her jewelry and some of her daughter's jewelry to Condron. She associates the adornments with her time in the East Village when she was, in her words, glamming it up. Okay, well, I think I went to a Judy Glansman show and I was talking to her about her career in the East Village. Miss Betty Cunningham. I was reading her bio or something, and she said that one of the years when she was, one of the superstars of the East Village, she painted over 400 paintings, which is more than one painting a day. And I said, "Is that true?" She said, "Probably." Carl Hazelwood's Things. Now, I know that Carl Hazelwood has a studio space, or at least had a studio space out at Art Cake, and I know that Jim had a show out there, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that he invited me to. I just couldn't make it, but I kind of think it's interesting that he's not only selecting things from the people that are the teachers here, some of the founding members of the studio school, but just any of his artist buddies. Oh, this is Betty Cunningham. A vintage WC brand Navy boat anchor as the foundation for the gallerist Betty Cunningham. Okay, so that was where she started out at. It was upstairs at Finelli's. I remember going and seeing several great shows there, like John Walker, maybe. And interesting story, she started out in Soho, went over and ran a very successful gallery in Chelsea for 15 or 20 years. Then she went back to the Lower East Side, about 2 blocks away from Finelli's, and was there for another 6 or 7 years. Merrill Wagner's things. Merrill Wagner was married to Robert Ryman and is the mother of Cordy Ryman. Cordy runs Art Cake, and yes, Merrill is a very well respected and influential artist in her own right. And I believe that she just got picked up by, it was Pace. Vintage telephones. And Merrill has done a lot of work with the slate. Grace Hardigan's things, 2023. The bright pink Crocs incorporated into Condron's poignant sculpture were the last pair of shoes the pioneer painter Grace Hardigan wore while she was painting. The work also includes a paint stick Hardigan used to mix paint and thinner for one of her final paintings, as well as her pillow, reminiscent of Matisse's cutouts. Matisse was a lifelong inspiration for Hardigan. Condon based the composition on the sculpture in Philip Guston's painting Cellar, 1970. This is Cordy Ryman's things. We got Cordy's wallet, his cell phone case. We got a shirt with copper tags holding it in there. The artist Cordy Ryman gave Condron 2 fidget spinners, a dozen pill bottles, a wooden body massage roller, a message ball, and 6 wallets. Well, I told you about Jim having a studio out at Art Cake. Okay, this is one of the more interesting pieces in the show. Ken Tisa's things, 2023. The artist Ken Tisa is himself a zealous collector. Tisa gave Condron nearly 75 things that he collected throughout his life. The artifacts include his mother May's eyeglasses, a set of teeth he inherited from his uncle, who was an artist and professional maker of false teeth, and an antique pottery shard. Some of these objects were made by Tisa himself, including sculptures and fragments of embroidery. Tisa's objects embody wildly diverse cultural traditions. Condron fastened most of Tisa's things to a vintage 30-foot hemp rope, climbing rope with woven knots. Other things are placed on shelves. Karen Wilkins things. Okay, Karen is the curator of the show. Condron joined 2 oak boards once owned by the artist Carl Hazelwood. The surface looks like a game of solitaire. The bullfighting themed playing cards are owned by Wilkins' father. And as was the shaving brush, Wilkins also gave Condron ribbons, shells, and a wooden box, rubber museum admission bracelets, a tea strainer, and a plastic shovel. And we're going to end up looking at this very poignant piece. Graham Nixon's Things, 2023, vintage book, palette, brush, holder, antique, ivory, and wood. And the reason I say that this is poignant is because Graham Nixon passed away about, maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. And he'd been the head here of the studio school for, maybe most of the time that the studio school has existed, so probably over 30 years. And so it looks like we've got a little pigeon coop, little dove house. Antique ivory. I guess that would be one of Graham's palettes. It's almost like a pew at a church, or the reverend's pulpit here. Except we don't have the Bible. Gosh, what is this? Must be like a British art history book. Constable and Turner. Oh, we got some watercolors in there. Actually looks like a Turner. So, this is James Kalm reporting on Jim Condron collected things here at the New York Studio School. You can like this, share, subscribe. You can post your thoughts, ideas, comments, criticisms, reviews, and suggestions below. And we only ask what we always ask for 19 years, and that is for you to say, "Thank you, Kate."
Bet you do that.
Whoa.
I'm gonna tune my guitar because it's horribly out.
Thank you.
All right, let's do